Have you ever looked at a winding river and wondered about the stories it holds? Today we're diving deep into a legendary tale from ancient China, a story of compassion, sacrifice, and the mythical origins of the country's four greatest rivers. This is the story of the four Dragon Kings. Long, long ago, before the world was as we know it, the seas were ruled by four mighty dragon kings. There was Long, the great dragon, whose domain was the vast eastern sea. Then there was the yellow dragon, ruler of the southern sea, the black dragon, master of the northern sea, and finally, the pearl dragon, guardian of the western sea. These four brothers weren't just powerful, they were benevolent, often seen playing in the sky, chasing clouds and weaving through the mists. Their lives were peaceful, spent within the crystal palaces at the bottom of the ocean, surrounded by their loyal subjects of fish, turtles, and shrimp. One day, as they were soaring through the heavens, they decided to leave their familiar seas and venture over the land of China. What they saw below stopped them in their tracks. The vibrant green fields they remembered were gone, replaced by cracked, scorched earth. The rivers had dried up into dusty gullies, and the trees were withered and bare. They saw people, once joyful and bustling, now gathered in small, desperate groups. Some were digging for roots, their faces streaked with dirt and despair. Others were kneeling by empty wells, praying to the heavens for a single drop of rain. The air was thick with the scent of dust and the sound of weeping. Children were crying from hunger, and the elderly looked to the sky with hollow eyes. The four Dragon Kings felt a great sorrow welling up inside them. This was a suffering they had never witnessed before. The yellow dragon spoke first, his voice heavy. "How can these poor people survive? If it doesn't rain soon, they will all perish." Long, the great dragon, nodded grimly. "We must go to the Jade Emperor in the heavenly palace and plead with him to send rain." The other two dragons agreed immediately. They couldn't just fly away and pretend they hadn't seen this devastation. With a shared sense of purpose, they transformed into a powerful gust of wind and shot up towards the sky, heading straight for the heavenly palace. The Jade Emperor, the supreme ruler of heaven, earth, and the underworld, was not pleased to be disturbed. He was in the middle of a grand banquet, surrounded by celestial gods and fairies, enjoying divine music and delicacies. When the four Dragon Kings burst in and explained the dire situation on Earth, the Jade Emperor barely looked up from his feast. He waved a dismissive hand. "You may return to your seas," he said, his voice laced with annoyance. "I will send rain tomorrow." He then turned back to his festivities, leaving the dragons standing there, stunned. The four brothers had no choice but to thank the emperor and leave the palace. But as they flew back towards Earth, their hearts were heavy with doubt. The Jade Emperor's promise felt empty, his tone indifferent. When they arrived back over the parched land, the people's suffering seemed even more acute. Days passed, then a week, then 10 days, and still not a single drop of rain fell from the sky. The sun continued to beat down relentlessly. The last bits of green had vanished, and people were beginning to collapse from heat and starvation. The Dragon Kings saw this, and their sorrow turned to a quiet fury. The people were dying, and the Jade Emperor was feasting. The Pearl Dragon, usually the calmest of the four, spoke with a fire in his eyes. The Jade Emperor only cares for his own pleasure. He has forgotten the people on earth. The Black Dragon added, "We cannot stand by and watch them die. We must find a way to save them, with or without the Emperor's help." A bold idea began to form. Long, the great dragon looked out at the vast ocean beneath them. "Look," he said, his voice resonating with newfound resolve. "We live in the sea. There is more water here than we could ever count. Why don't we scoop it up and spray it over the land? It will be like rain, and it will save the people." The others were taken aback by the simplicity and audacity of the plan. It was direct defiance of the Jade Emperor's authority, but then they looked down at the suffering below, and their hesitation vanished. They knew what they had to do. Without another word, the four mighty dragons plunged towards the sea. They opened their massive mouths and scooped up colossal amounts of seawater. Then they soared back into the sky, flying high above the desperate land. They flew over the mountains, the valleys, and the dying villages. And then they began to spray. They tilted their heads back and let the water pour from their mouths in a fine, powerful mist. It fell upon the earth like a miraculous downpour. The people below looked up in disbelief. Rain, the sweet, life-giving rain they had prayed for, was finally falling. They ran out of their homes. Their faces turned to the sky, letting the water wash away the dust and despair. The dry earth drank greedily. The withered crops began to stir with life. The children laughed and splashed in the newly formed puddles. A great cheer erupted across the land, a sound of pure joy and relief. The four Dragon Kings flew back and forth from the sea to the land, tirelessly spraying water until every field was soaked and every riverbed began to fill. They had saved the people. But their act of compassion did not go unnoticed. High in the heavenly palace, the Jade Emperor was alerted to the unsanctioned rainfall by the local sea gods and the god of the winds. He flew into a rage. How dare these dragons defy his will? How dare they take matters into their own hands? He saw their actions not as an act of mercy, but as a direct challenge to his authority. He immediately dispatched his heavenly guards, led by the celestial general, to arrest the four Dragon Kings. The dragons, exhausted but content, were no match for the full might of the heavenly army. They were captured and brought before the Jade Emperor's throne. The Emperor glared at them, his face thunderous. "You ignored my command and acted on your own," he boomed. "This is a crime against heaven itself. For your insolence, you will be imprisoned for all eternity." He summoned the mountain god and commanded him to bring four great mountains. The Jade Emperor pointed a finger at the dragons, and with a powerful incantation, he trapped each one under a towering peak. One mountain pressed down on Long, the great dragon. another on the yellow dragon, a third on the black dragon, and the fourth on the pearl dragon. They were pinned to the very earth they had sought to save, their freedom stripped away. But even imprisoned under the crushing weight of stone, the four dragon kings did not regret their decision. Their only thought was for the people of the land. They had saved them once, but what would happen in the future? What if another drought came? They couldn't bear the thought of the people suffering again. So, from deep within their mountain prisons, they made a final, ultimate sacrifice. They resolved to serve the people forever. With a final, monumental effort, they transformed themselves. The great dragon long became a mighty river that flowed through the heart of the land. The yellow dragon turned into a second great river, winding through the northern plains. The black dragon became a powerful river in the far north, and the pearl dragon transformed into a beautiful river that nourished the south. And so, the four great rivers of China were born. The Yangtze River, from Long the Great Dragon. The Yellow River, from the Yellow Dragon. The Heilongjiang or Black Dragon River in the northeast, and the Zhujiang or Pearl River in the south. The four compassionate dragons gave up their freedom and their very forms to become eternal sources of life for the land and its people, ensuring that they would never again suffer from such a terrible drought. Their spirit flows through the waters, a timeless reminder of courage and sacrifice. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into myth and legend. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales from around the world. See you next time.